The story of AI in travel actually starts here. Bear with me. This is the Pan Am Airways Reservation Center circa 1958. And I can describe to you a little bit what is going on here, but you can probably imagine that these people down at the desks below at the Rolodexes are receiving calls from customers that are looking to make reservations for a specific date, origin airport, arrival airport. And the board in the background represents the availability. And so the agents are looking for pricing in the Rolodex and are looking for availability up on the board. The availability board is like the database of availability status that we can imagine now in the GDS, and the pricing models are in that Rolodex. So this is an example of early technology to solve the problem of how can we search travel, how can we search for availability for airfare very quickly, instantaneously. And it's an example of how technology extends what we are able to do as individuals, as humans, by extending that ability beyond what we are capable of with our own bodies. Of course, that technology needed to be extended even further very soon thereafter, because as Pan Am scaled, they realized that that room could no longer support. So at the time of that room, they had 47 scheduled flights a week. And by 1970, they were booking 10 million tickets a year. And so they built the Panamac computer, which is very a contemporaneous system to Sabre, or the Deltatronic, I think was the equivalent from Delta. All of the airlines were able to scale with this new kind of technology, and were able to basically go beyond what was originally possible. And now look at here, this is an early prototype of the Sabre system. What happened then between then and now is that the technology that we saw here has been put into the hands of everyone. Basically, we don't need these skilled technicians anymore to operate this machinery. We can operate the machinery ourselves. The machinery is now on our desktops. It was. Now it is in our pockets. It is in our phones. And with this capability, we now have access to this immense power to book ourselves. What it has led to, however, is information overload. So we now are capable, we are able to do this, have a kind of cybernetic extension of our bodies now where we can book ourselves, where we can access all of this information ourselves, but that is also overwhelming. This here is a visualization of the data that Hopper receives every day. So Hopper receives billions of flight prices into its systems every day. And over years, we have accumulated trillions of fares. And what this has enabled us to do is to see some very interesting patterns. So what you are looking at here is basically this pulsating view is the actual demand of people searching for travel. And what you see there are those interesting patterns, those triangles. So across is departure dates, and down at the bottom is return dates. And so obviously on the diagonal, what we're seeing is length of stay. And so as time goes on, you can see search time in the top left there. As we approach our departure dates, you can see that the prices are changing. So the greener colors are lower prices, the red colors are higher prices. Those little triangles represent the pricing models of airlines who are trying to target people like you, business travelers. all of this activity, all this pulsation is what is demonstrating the actual real live demand. And so what's interesting by looking at this is that beyond the actual data that we can have access to via these systems, there is another layer on top of insight, of intelligence, that can be emerged by looking at the data in the aggregate and looking at the data over time. So this is where Hopper comes in. Hopper sits at the convergence of two important technology evolutions. One of them is mobile, and one of them is data analytics. So Hopper processes, like I said, 300 billion flight prices each month. And what we do with that data is we build a relationship with our users through our mobile app. Mobile is a new kind of interaction. It's a new mode of interaction. It is not like the desktop. The desktop is primarily a pull model, a search model, where you go to ask a question and the web gives you an answer. In mobile, the flow of information is reversed. Mobile pushes you information. If you think about Twitter, you don't go to Twitter to execute a search, you go to Twitter to receive information, to be pushed content. When you go to Instagram, you receive, you are getting content, you are not actively searching for it. And Hopper was founded on this premise that we can use data, we can use insight from data to empower travel consumers. And as you can see, this has actually been a successful approach. Hopper is the #1 mobile travel app in North America. 26 million users, many trips planned, $700 million of flights sold. No wonder it's popular, because what Hopper enables is less work for better outcomes. So how do we do this? So every day, 150,000 new trips are planned on Hopper. And over time, that means that over the last 2 years, what we have been doing is sending all of those people that are watching these trips notifications to the tune of billions of notifications. And what those notifications are doing is having a conversation with our users, explaining to them what kind of insight we are finding in the actual data so that they don't have to find it themselves. We are now at a point where 25% of all of our sales are generated not from explicit searches by our users, but rather by AI recommendations that are completely independent of any explicit user search. So our algorithms use pattern finding in the user behavior and in similarities between itineraries that we can then use to make suggestions, to make recommendations. So here's an example of how that works. You can see that what is happening here is that we are in fact turning the commerce funnel upside down. So this particular story starts with a user who booked with us back in April. And if you look down at these rows down below, that represents the notifications, the pushes that we are sending to the users. Up above, the blue and the green represents the actions that the user is explicitly doing. So the user booked following a notification that we made to them in April. And in fact, 90% of our notifications, or rather 90% of our bookings come directly from notifications. If we look at what happened, the user comes back a few times in April, and then in May we trigger another notification, and that re-engages the user's interest. And now there's all kinds of activity in May. They don't book anything, but they're definitely interested by what we have shown them. Come June, again, we start sending a notification. That orange one there doesn't engage the user, but this other row, and I've kind of obscured them here to not give away too much of the secret sauce about which algorithms are doing what. But a notification sent in June then again initiates some interest, some engagement by the user throughout the summer. Again, no bookings, but a constant activity there where the user is coming back to the app and having a conversation between notifications and then coming to the app to see what that means. By September, school's back in, not a lot of activity by the user, and Hopper doesn't have a lot of recommendations to make. But come in October, again, we start a new campaign of notifications. Hopper has found something that is relevant to this user, and the user makes 3 bookings. In November, again, the user is consistently engaged throughout October and November, and then again in December, early or late November, another booking, and you can see that the user continues to be engaged. To the point where Hopper users are actually returning to the app every 4 to 5 days. And so just to be clear, there is no Google acquisition here. There is no web acquisition that's happening. We are having a conversation with a user that is a Hopper user, and that conversation keeps going. We don't have to reacquire the users again and again. It turns out that the users actually respond better to our suggestions than what they searched. So our conversion for notifications about things that users didn't explicitly ask for is actually better than the conversion on notifications related to the things they did explicitly ask for. What's important, obviously, in this is that we make those notifications very relevant to that specific user, hyper-personalized, and this is where AI comes in. So Hopper has not only been able to keep this engagement with users, but we've also been able to change the way that users plan travel. So users that stay with us, and remarkably many of them do, actually over time develop different kinds of trip planning habits. And what we're seeing is that the watch advance, for instance, is increasing over time, which is something that our supply partners are very interested in. So over the last 6 months, we have improved and increased our AI recommendation notifications, and that has changed our business to the point where 25% of our business now is directly attributable to a recommendation from our AI engine. So I'm just going to leave you very quickly, I know that I'm over here, with an interesting visualization from our data science team. So this represents the cloud of possibility at the center of which every user lives in Hopper. So each one of you that has Hopper installed on their phone has a cloud like this. And basically it's a cloud of probability. I'm going to enhance, zoom in. And so if you look at these various destinations, there's a low probability in the red and a high probability in the blue. And the advanced purchase is at the center of this spiral, lowest, and at the periphery of the spiral, highest. So you can see, for instance, that Zurich has a very low probability for this particular user, which is me, who lives in Boston, whereas Oranjestad has a kind of neutral probability. If I look up there at Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, there's high probability for those destinations. So what this effectively means is that, and we can zoom in even further here to, for instance, London. And if you look at London there, you see for the advanced purchase very low is in the red, but then as we get to longer advanced purchase for London, you can see that it's greater. So what's actually happening here is that we are predicting search. So to sum up, we believe that if we can predict the user intent, that we are in fact moving away from search. We actually believe that prediction will replace search, and as a category we will move away from search to the point where this AI is not just an interesting topic at a technology travel conference, but rather it is the future of travel. Thank you.
Concludes our 3 in 30 Tech Talks. Thank you.